Hey, welcome. This is Mazzy, and this is Anatomy of My Vinyl Community channel. I'm doing something a little different here. This is in a way like a index, like an overview, like not a thesaurus, like a cheat sheet, like what are those yellow books that you would, not me personally, but you'd read in college if you didn't want to read the whole book, Cliff Notes. This is like a Cliff Notes to my channel. But first, I want to thank you all for watching and being very supportive of the channel. And I would like comments on this one and suggestions and feedback based on the overview I'm going to give here. And I do appreciate the subscribers and the viewers who just watch, who accidentally come across my channel, or if you watch regularly. If you watch 3 or more of my videos, if you have watched 3 or more, just click the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything. I don't do commercials in the middle of my videos. So there's a box you can click. Tell those people that bug you that you watch their videos, get rid of the commercials on the inside. I do monetize my channel, but I make a little bit I make off the bumpers at the beginning and the tail end. So there shouldn't be, sometimes they slip and it's beyond my control, but there shouldn't be any commercials in the middle to break the continuity, because I'm all about continuity and the flow of these things. And, you know, if something's too long, feel free to pause it, come back another time, or move on to something else. Not every video I make, I intend for everybody. So I do like the feedback, and I'm going to go through all the categories of videos I do and just do a little overview, why I do them and how I see this going forward. And one thing that is really important to me is the curating of my collection, my record collection, my compact disc collection, my art books, music books, and my Beetle books, and photography, because those of you who don't know, I'm a photography agent by trade, 37 years. I had my stint in the 70s, early 80s in the record business. So I like to tell stories of the music that represented sort of that was around my life. So they are a little autobiographical. If you think that's egotistical, so be it. But it's about the music that was important to me growing up and even to this day. And I like to showcase the records and use those as a bookmark, as a framework for telling the stories. And I have stories that some people seem to latch onto, others don't. That's why I do these various types of videos. So I'm going to kind of go through these now, and these sort of represent all the kinds of videos I do. I'm going to start with the whack-a-moles. If you haven't seen my whack-a-moles, I do have playlists. All these things I'm describing, with a few exceptions, there's a playlist and you can watch 130 something whack-a-moles. And that's where I randomly pick a record. I usually pick 5 records. I occasionally do a whack-a-moles with guests where we just kind of hang out, we have a cocktail maybe, and we pull a record. So let me just give you one example, okay? If I can reach here. These are random, and I don't cheat. I actually pick a record. Okay, Guitar Slim. This is on, is this Tacoma Records? No, this is on Specialty Records. Specialty also was the record company, I believe, that Little Richard was on. He's sort of a Mississippi soul blues guitar player and singer. This is kind of a good comp. This is from the 1970s. Specifically, let's see, do we have a date here? 1970. This is a pressing that I picked up during my record store days. This copy could have come out in the mid to late 70s when I worked in a store, but it's a really kind of a great, it's a record of its times, and it probably was recorded early, I guess, in the 50s. Does it say here? Guitar Slim was not only a great blues performer, but one of the most original and passionate lyricists ever to work in the blues form. Okay. He did the best-selling blues record the year I was born, 1954. The best R&B record, The Things That I Used to Do. So in this case, I know of his music, but I don't have it off the top of my head. So when I do this whack-a-mole, sometimes I talk about the cover art, I talk about the genre. Sometimes I, look at the notes and give me a taste. So if you haven't seen my whack-a-moles, that's what I do. And sometimes I have a little fun with it. I don't make things up, but obviously I may pivot depending on what I know about the record and what I enjoy about the music and just how it makes me feel, or if there's an experience that I actually went through while I was listening to that music, or who or when the music was turned on to me. Okay. The next series that I've been doing most recently, I think I only have 6 or 7 of them. It's a section of videos, a collection of videos, I should say, called "It's the Music Stupid," and that's where I pick usually 5 records. Sometimes I add another or pull one out, or it might be something a little more thematic, where I talk about the music. It's not about the pressings. It's not about, audiophile or not audiophile or digital or not. It's about the music. And if the music sounds good to you, that's all that matters. It's from 1972 of the Meters, Cabbage Alley, the great New Orleans, just what a soulful, funky outfit out of New Orleans. And they did a series of albums on Warner Brothers. I remember Rejuvenation is one I have as well. But just great, great, great stuff. And they worked with Bob Dylan too, and Daniel Lanois. And I think they also backed up Sneakin' Sally Through the Alley, the Robert Palmer album, where they did several covers of Lowell George songs. So this is where I want to showcase albums that I think people should check out. Not every album I show in this kind of category is going to be for everybody, but I try to mix it up. Another record, one of my favorite country records that I got into in the 70s. This was a record from the 1960s, and it's Capitol stereo copy. This is probably a copy from around 75-ish. Pressing, so it's not an OG on Capitol, but Merle Haggard, right? Hire the Ex-Con, great country artist, the Bakersfield scene, and amongst my favorite is Lonesome Fugitive. I'd rather settle down, but they won't let me. I'm on the run, the highway is my home. I raised a lot of cane in my younger days. My mama used to pray my crops would fail. How bad is that? Not an original version. This is the 70s version, but it sounds awesome. It's great. Of course, The Strangers, what a great band. That great, Telecaster guitar sound, and Merle Haggard. So, I don't need another copy of this. Would I look for an original? Probably not. I don't really care. This sounds fantastic. So it's about the music, stupid. And Merle Haggard, of course, is one of my favorite country artists by far, definitely. Now, this is this is where I talk about a half. It's not really a half, but it's a 10-inch. And this is Get On Board. This is a cool, bluesy, soulful 10-inch original on Folkways Records of Negro folk songs by the Folk Masters. This is a really cool 10-inch, just very soulful. But I show this because this past year, one of my favorite records that came out was this. And this is Ry Cooder and Taj Mahal and Joaquin Cooder on percussion. Obviously, they emulate that wonderful record by Sonny Terry and Brownie McGhee. And they don't do all the songs from that record. They don't cover song by song, but they do a lot of songs that Sonny Terry and Brownie McGhee would play, just traveling and on other records. And it's sort of the mood of the feel of that. And I was fortunate enough, I pre-ordered. They emulated the Smithsonian Folkways artwork and cover, which I think is really fun. I did get a signed slick of the cover when I ordered directly through Nonsuch Records. And I was fortunate enough to see the one show they did for this record in San Francisco at the Great American Music Hall, which is just fantastic. So when I do these, It's the Music Stupid, this is what you get, these kind of things. And sometimes I go old, sometimes I go in different genres, sometimes I go deep, sometimes it's just a record I like that many of you know of. But there's always someone out there, even though you may know it, there's someone out there that doesn't know it. So I never take for granted my audience that everyone knows everything. And so when I get a comment, we already know that. We all know that this came out. We all know We don't all know. I don't know. I watch videos and I learn, and I listen to music and read articles that I learn. Now, another thing I really like doing is the ranking videos. And I know a million people on YouTube do ranking videos, and some see it as a cheap way of showcasing and to get viewers, but they're always subjective to the creator. In my case, my opinion. There's a whole playlist of the rankings I've done of Miles Davis and of the Beatles and solo Beatles and Rolling Stones and David Bowie and on and on and on. And one that I have in the works I haven't done yet, for instance, is Elvis Costello. And I don't necessarily include every single Elvis Costello record. In some cases, if they have a small catalog, I'll include all the records and do a 10-to-1. Sometimes I've done 20 or 15-to-1. In this case, I'm going to probably pick maybe 15 or so Elvis Costello records, maybe 20, depends on the mood I'm in, and I'll rank them up to number 1. So this sort of gives you a good idea. It's a little preview of something that will come down the line. Not quite sure when. And I don't do a major sketch of my videos. I keep a list of the videos I want to do, or of ideas, and depending on the mood, if I just want to put something out and I just feel the need, I'll come down and do a whack-a-mole or do a It's a Music Stupid. These are more planned out, obviously, because I care about what I do. I take it seriously, but I also want to have fun with it. So I do my ranking videos, and at some point there'll be an Elvis Costello video ranking. Another series of videos I do, a Mazzy's Mix. That's more like, in a way, what the vinyl community started. But again, my videos are for, and I'm a part of the vinyl community, but I try to make them so other people enjoy them. So it's not just people who collect vinyl. I mean, if you collect CDs, if you just music, if you're interested in art, photography, design, it's like the trail mix. It's like a potpourri. It's everything, all the parts and pieces, leftover things. It's kind of like a box set, in a way, of outtakes and alternate things. I'll show some new records I've got in the mail. I'll show some records that people have sent me. Sometimes I'll throw a couple of books in there, art pieces. I may do a mini featurette on one album or one artist, and I may do a little location thing in a record store or on the road. And a lot of the mixes I'll do when I'm on the road. I've driven to San Francisco and I've driven around. So I really enjoy doing those. So that's what the mix things are all about. And I wait till I have things saved up before I do a Mazzy's Mix. And there's a series I've done called Memories of a Vinyl Junkie. And it's been a long time since I've done one under that moniker, under that title or brand, if you will. Memories of a Vinyl Junkie are autobiographical. I pick a year, and ironically, I looked over them recently to see what years I've done. And for the most part, I think I've only done even years. It must be the Virgo in me or something, like 70, 72, 74, 92, whatever, 90, and so on, 80. So I need to kind of fill in those. And what those are, I pull out a bunch of records that came out on that particular year. Sometimes I'll mix photographs in from my my personal archive. I'll talk about what I was doing there. Sometimes I include a girlfriend or someone I was dating at the time, because it tells a story. And I use these in a way autobiographically of sort of a self-therapy and a remembrance. And I swear I have great memory of things that happened 40 years ago, 25 years ago, but not anything that happened 2 weeks ago on a certain night. Just how it is. I think it's common with a lot of people, but I have a very vivid memory of when I worked in the record business and certain years when a record came out. And I use these records literally as bookmarks for my life. And I remember sometimes the first time I heard a song or put a record on or played it with a friend or took a drive. And this is one I've showed many times, but I'll just show it to sort of illustrate Memories of a Vinyl Junkie. Is my first copy I ever got of the Butcher cover, an infamous 1966 Capitol debacle from the Robert Whitaker photograph that they put on this comp. And this is, Capitol put this out, only comp in early 66. They wanted to get product out. They took the songs like Day Tripper, Yesterday, We Can Work It Out, and they took some early songs that were going to be on Revolver. George Martin sent them 3 Lennon songs, And Your Bird Can Sing, Dr. Robert, and I'm Only Sleeping, and different mixes. And it's really too bad because those songs really fit wonderfully on Revolver. In the American edition, those songs were not on Revolver. But I never had this record until my birthday in 1973. So that is my 19th birthday. And it's because this is my 500th album. And if you're new to my channel, you don't know the story, but this is a huge memory. And it's not a bad memory, even though my girlfriend at the time, Judy, found this copy for me and wrote this wonderful little thing on it. Really sweet. And I remember when she gave it to me, I didn't even get upset that she wrote on a friggin' butcher cover. But I never got one early on. And so in 73, was that 7 years after this originally was released, Judy gave me a copy of this. And so this is a really important, I remember the moment she gave it to me, the look on her face, it was so touching. It was so romantic. It was just really beautiful. So I do have another copy of the butcher cover I got some years later, and also a bootleg. So, I mean, I would never trade this away in the world. It means a lot to me. And that's what Memories of a Vinyl Junkie is all about. Next, I do have a whole playlist of Beatles. Obviously, I'm a big Beetle collector. You can see there's the butcher cover, a replica of the poster that came out. There's from the Mercy Beat, Bill Harry's zine or newspaper that was part of the Merseyside during the early 60s and the heyday of the whole Mercy Beat sound. But sometimes when I do these things, I'll show sometimes a ranking, I'll show a Beatles release, a reissue, a box set, a rare edition. And just for right now, I want to show these. This is obviously getting a lot of mileage right now because of the reissue coming out. But this is that really rare first pressing mono Revolver with the different mix of the wonderful song Tomorrow Never Knows that only was on the very first pressing, only few of them. This is that, and it's mono, and it sounds awesome. The best version you could ever hear. Now, having said that, the later versions of the mono that came out sound just as good, but it doesn't have that rare mix. This is another one. This is fantastic. This is, I don't know if it's a very first press, but it's one of the first or second presses of Sgt. Pepper in mono, the tube cut of this, and it's amazing. And I grew up with the American stereo Sgt. Pepper, and I love the stereo. And I still, for whatever reason, I give the stereo an edge. I think it serves psychedelia better. I know all the stuff about the Beatles and everyone, they concentrated on the mono mix, and the stereo was almost secondary. Well, nothing's really secondary. I think that's a bunch of semi-bullshit. But once you do one mix, it's easier to do the second mix, and you don't always have the band. In fact, in those days, the bands weren't in with the producers a lot during the final mixes. Just was a fact. Obviously, the Beatles were during the mono period of this, especially this album. But this is one I got from the Coleman Collection. My friend there, whose collection that we took on, we bought from his sister after his passing last year, and we curated it and kept some of it and gave a lot away and sold some as well. So the Beatle things, you know, sometimes it's singles, Beatles family, Beatles related, Yoko Ono. That's something I really enjoy doing. But again, I'm not a Beatles channel. There are plenty of Beatles channels that's all they do. And some of them I really enjoy, and I watch those. And like anything else, there's some you like, some you gravitate to because of the content. Some are more professorial, some are a little more humorous, and it just varies on what you want. And to me, that's something I try to portray. I like to bring a little humor in my videos sometimes, and tongue-in-cheek, and I'll get into that a little later. Another playlist I have is jazz, and you know, this is the Tone Poet box set of Ornette Coleman. So I may do something on a whole Tone Poet release. I might do a label. I've done things on Verve Records. I've done things on various smaller jazz labels. I've done things on my top the most artists I've had in my jazz collection. I think Coltrane and Miles Davis were up there close to number one, as I recall. Don't have it right in front of me right now. But I love jazz. And I got into jazz starting in 1970 and never turned back. And fortunately enough, as I've said many times, I saw a lot of the great jazz artists in the 1970s, mostly at the Keystone Corner in San Francisco, Todd Barkin's club, but other clubs too. And I opened up to jazz, but I am a little disappointed that people don't really show a lot of jazz like Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie and Bud Powell and, bebop stuff. I mean, that is something that is really, really important to me, and I just love it. So jazz, this is out there jazz, actually, in this case. Now, another thing that I really want to discuss here for a couple minutes is the whole concept and the thing about autophiliacs, being an audiophile. I think there is a difference. I think we almost should put these in different categories now. Audiophile versus analog file, right? This whole MoFi debacle, and this section is not strictly about mobile fidelity at all. I like a good sounding record. And I think why I started those videos on It's the Music Stupid was a direct result of the backlash and the just ongoing videos and threads on the Hoffman forums and other places of the MoFi revelation that a lot of their stuff is cut from digital cuts. But I want to apologize a little bit right up front before I get into this, because I think I put down some people in my own way, and I didn't mean to be so personal, but I think they felt it was personal, that I didn't understand how a number of people got very emotional when they found out that their mobile fidelity records were not all analog. Now, you could go either way on this, and if you're a non-audiophile at all, a person, and you're always suspect of these expensive high-end, quote high-end analog records, there's a lot of people saying, well, ha ha ha, they couldn't hear it. And then after the fact, people are saying, I knew there was something wrong. I think it was more about the mastering, although I know some people, some friends of mine who have gotten very upset, and it's affected them in ways that I would never have imagined it would affect people. Like they can't even go near their mobile fidelity records. And that's to each his own or her own. And okay, fair enough. There was deceit, there was lies, there was, is it irreparable damage? Do we need to sue them? I don't know. Do you want to dump all your MoFis? Do you not like them now, but you liked them 3, 4, 6 months ago? That's an honest question to ask. But I wanted to pull just a few mobile fidelity albums to illustrate the point here, at least from my point of view. I pulled 4 records here, and these are 4 mobile fidelity records that I think still to this day exceed and sound better than originals. And I have originals of all these. One is Paradise and Lunch, Ry Cooder. I think this one actually is all analog, as I recall. So it's not a DSD transfer. Fantastic record, fantastic sound. Now, having said that, the Warner Brothers records, the Reprise record, sounds fantastic. So there's no need to upgrade, but of course, being my favorite guitar player of all time, I have to go for these. In fact, Boomer Story, Paradise and Lunch, Chicken Skin Music, all 3 I think are all analog, and these are amazing sounding records. Do you need them if you have a good? No, you don't. And that whole idea of looking for, in search of the best recording, there's always something out there. That's a little strange from my point of view, and I think that kind of wastes and takes away the enjoyment of the music. But I get it. You want a good stereo. You want something to sound good on your rig, depending on what kind of stereo you have. But I think you want the best sounding copy. But if you're not satisfied and you're always looking for something else, I think that, to me, from my point of view, sort of ruins the enjoyment of music. This is another one. I have a UK pressing of this. I have an American A&M original with the gold label. It sounds really good. but it doesn't sound anywhere near as good as this. It's a Salty Dog Procol Harum, probably their best album, and it is such a good record, really well recorded, I think, and the mobile fidelity kicks ass to the ground of the other versions. It's really good. I've said this many times, of course. You know, some may argue, but I always say that the RCA, the original mono or stereo versions of Three Pillow, isn't a great sounding record. Well, that's not totally true. It's a record of its time. It's when a rock band went to RCA in Hollywood with engineers that didn't really know how to record rock bands. It's drenched in reverb. It does sound good. It's a fantastic record. You know, I enjoyed that record for 50 years plus before I got this record. But this is double 45 record. But this is the best sounding version that Surrealistic Pillow has ever sounded. This and actually Volunteers, an album they did a couple years later in '69, I believe. This is from 1967, one of the great Summer of Love records. And it's a tight sound. It's a great sound. And yes, there is a digital step. But this double 45, I would never get rid of this one, you know, despite we now know that there's a digital step. But it worked. They did great mastering, and it's a wonderful record. It's the best version of this recording, in my opinion. And then there's this, Little Feat. Now, MoFi did this twice, in '79 and I believe in 2010 maybe. I've heard that the other one isn't as good, but this one is fantastic. Now, I have an original, which sounds really good, and I have the new Bernie Grundman, Chris Bellman / cut, which sounds really good. And honestly, all three are very close, but I gave this one the edge. And now I want to merge and dissolve from audiophiles, audiophilia, into politics. I don't do a lot of political videos, and I have almost 960 videos now on my channel, and there's probably no more than 12 to 15 that have political content in it. And I know there's a lot of people that, you know, will do a comment or will say, okay, thank you, I'm unsubscribing. I came here for the music, not for the politics, not for your opinion. But a channel like mine, I'm not a documentary. I'm not the History Channel. I'm not doing like, you know, some of these historical overviews of Elvis Costello or the Beatles, or was Pete Best a good drummer or not, or, you know, Ornette Coleman, why, or Out There music or whatever. This is about my experience. And I grew up at a time when politics were a big part of music, from the folk sing, from Bob Dylan, from, you know, Woody Guthrie, before my time, into the Beatles, to Revolution, to Street Fighting Man by the Stones, you know, times they are a-changin', into, you know, music of the 70s, and, you know, political, and just about the world. And I think that is an important part when it's appropriate. And I think we're in a time and place right now where the politics does seep in. And, you know, there are some rips in the democracy in this country, and some people who kind of are ruining the idea of democracy and what the American, you know, situation, the American experiment is all about. I have no problem in someone having a disagreement on taxation or immigration, if it's legitimate, or, you know, we all want an immigration, really immigration reform. And we've come close, and then someone says, no, they don't want that. You know, on both sides, you know, whether being pro-choice, I don't think that should be a political thing. That is a personal choice. And I think people putting their religious things on the rest of the country of their religious beliefs and morals is kind of bullshit to my point of view. But the thing that bothers me more about all that, when I talk about the dangers to our democracy, is that there's a segment of the population in America that are believing the lies, especially when they've been proven over and over and over again, whether it's election lies, voting, legal voting, when it's been proven and recounted and counted. And just because a small group of people are saying it over and over again, there's like the lemmings that are following that. And that's something that I bring up on my channel every once in a while when I feel the need. And Again, every time I do that, I might lose 10 subscribers, and I get that. I try to give you a warning when I'm going to do that so you can turn off and skip those videos. But I find I get 50 to 100 more people subscribing. So, if you're coming here, you're coming for the whole package. And if you don't like those, by all means, and I appreciate if you just skip them. And again, I appreciate all the comments, not just on the political videos, whether it's political, whether it's rankings, whether it's memories of a vinyl junkie, where it's the Beatles or jazz or anything else. I appreciate it. And I don't get to answer everyone or respond to everything, but I do read them all, and I try to just give a response. Now, if it's a horrible misogynist or a racist or homophobic or Semitic comment, it's tossed out. I'm blocking you. But otherwise, I have no problem if you disagree with a choice of a record or a political direction I have. So that's that part. There's just two more segments I want to talk about that aren't specifically segments, but they're stylistic things. And sometimes I incorporate these in existing videos of some of the lists that I just, went through in the last, 20 minutes or so. And that is humor and artistic endeavors, attempted humor and attempted artistic endeavors. Those of you who follow me regularly know I can be snarky. I like to go for some humor. Sometimes I fall on my face. Sometimes it's dad humor. Sometimes it's a smirk. And I think those of you who watch me kind of know what's going on. One example, the first thing that really changed, and you can search my name and after that include prog music, prog records. Norman Maslow, Prog. And if you haven't seen that video, watch it. I did a video, and I think it was the first one that got legs, as they say in the business, It got hit an algorithm, and I got more comments and more subscribers and more people like lambasting me for telling me I don't know prog music. And it was called, I think it was called Prog Albums for People Who Don't Like Prog Music, something like that. Paraphrase. I don't even know my own title. I've been making so many videos. But what's great about that, there was a sense of humor in it. I mean, I kept referring back to Bill Bruford's on every other prog record. And if you know prog, you know what that's about. And I kept saying that it seems like prog fans, big prog freaks, don't have a sense of humor. I still believe that's the case for the most part. And I talked about how it's overwrought and epic, and Yes's Topographic Ocean really wrecked the whole concept of prog being too long, and men's in capes and dwarfs and druids and all, I mean, oh my God. And the other one I need to say, and people, this one sort of merges snarkiness with a sense of humor. And this is the one that really blasted through the roof. I think I have 100,000 views or something on it. And it's about this gentleman. And I like his music. And this is one of my rant videos. And occasionally, not very often, I do a rant video. And I really went off on this one. I was, looking back on it, I think it was like my Arthur Jenoff Primal Therapy rant video, if you know what I mean. I had a good time with it. Oh my God, the blowback I got from this, but I got like something like 5,000 subscribers from it over a period of time. It hit a nerve, and it was partly because of his legal people suing the woman. Started out because a woman sold a bootleg that her late husband had of Eric Clapton, or some Eric Clapton bootleg in Germany, and she got a little uppity about it and didn't want to take the listing down, and they sued her for $4,000 or whatever it was. It was a dumb move on her part, but come on, Eric, give me a break. I understand about counterfeiting, but selling a bootleg you already had. And anyway, that's one story. And also the time when him and Van Morrison were telling people to don't get shots because, oh my God, the vaccine, we're in a friggin' pandemic. The world's, that's another thing that people get upset about, You talk about health issues and science. They don't believe science. But so that was one of my rants. And I love this record, Delaney Bonnie and Friends. And I love it to pieces. And I love Cream. And I love Blind Faith and the Yardbirds and even Layla, you know. 461 Ocean Boulevard I still enjoy. After that, it's hit and miss. But that was the ranting videos and the over-the-top videos. And again, sometimes I say people don't have a sense of humor because they don't understand. I mean, I have a little smirk, and if you know where I'm coming from, you know what's going on here. Anyway, lastly, I really enjoy doing these things on art books. Being a photo agent, I talk about photography a lot. I talk about album cover design, art directors, illustrators, photographers. I've shown books like this wonderful book of Verve that has like all the album covers and showcases artists that were on Norman Grantz's label Verve. I just think this is a stunning volume. I think it may be out of print, but if you are a jazz fan especially, but a fan of design and art, The Sound of America, Verve, one of the greatest, obviously, record labels ever. Another I just absolutely love is this like entire Bible of hypnosis. Storm Thorgerson, and Aubrey Powell. Obviously, we know from they've done Paul McCartney and Wings and Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and 10cc and so many amazing album covers and art covers. And I love my collection of art books and photography books and illustration books. And then I'll close out, which is showing this, you know, Genesis Books is they do kind of high-end limited editions, and I collect all their Beatle-related ones. They have a whole rock and roll series. They've done Jeff Beck and Ronnie Wood and David Bowie, and I have from a lot of photographers, and I have George Martin's book and Yoko Ono's book, and this is the most recent one, photographs by Mike McCartney. That's Mike McGear. That was his other name, Paul McCartney's brother, and it's really a wonderful book that comes in a slipcase with a photograph signed. And at some point, I'm going to do a whole showcase on my Genesis book collections because these are magnificent books. The way they're edited, the way they're designed, the way they're put together. Inset sometimes tip sheets with photos and lyrics depending on the direction, negatives. Just a wonderful piece of art here. But that's from Genesis Books, and this is photographs by Mike McCartney's early Liverpool. So that is just what I wanted to showcase, sort of where I am with my channel, how I see the segments in my channel, and I hope you enjoy it. And again, you know, tell me what you like and tell me what you don't like. And I'm still going to do maybe what you don't like, but you can skip those because, again, every video, I do a lot of videos, and every video is not for everybody. So, again, I appreciate it. Please subscribe, push the like button. That really helps out a lot. And Mazzy loves you dearly. I'm going to go listen to Eric Clapton now.